The book of Job is a terrifying tale about suffering. God strikes a deal with Satan to torment an entirely innocent man. As I tell you the story, I'm sure you'll be horrified by the unimaginable pain Job endures. Why would God allow a good man to undergo unspeakable suffering? And why would he even talk to the devil Satan as if he were a valued friend? If you are suffering right now and are wondering why God is punishing you unfairly, please watch this video until the end. In the book of Job, God gives 3 reasons why you have to suffer. These reasons may shock you, but I sincerely hope that after reflecting upon them, you'll realize that they do make sense and be comforted in the end. In the land of Uz lived a man named Job, a man of deep faith and integrity. He feared God and shunned evil. Job was blessed abundantly with 10 children and immense wealth, and everyone respected him. Job owned thousands of sheep, camels, donkeys, and oxen. In fact, he was so rich that he was the greatest man in the East. However, despite being the richest man in the East, Job was never arrogant, boastful, or evil. He remained humble and righteous. So God cherished Job for his unwavering goodness and devotion. One day in the courts of heaven, the angels presented themselves before God, and among them came Satan. God looked at Satan and said, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on earth. He's blameless and upright and never commits any evil acts." But Satan was not convinced that Job was truly a good man. He replied, "The only reason Job acts virtuously is because he knows you're rewarding his behavior. Haven't you made him rich, given him a large family, and protected all his possessions? But take it all away, and I'm sure he'll curse you right to your face." God took up the challenge. He replied, "I allow you to test Job in any way you choose, but don't ever lay a hand on his body." Satan was delighted. He left God's presence and began scheming to destroy Job. Job had no idea about the agreement Satan made with God, but that fateful meeting would soon bring a wave of unimaginable loss and devastation to Job's life. One day, while Job was going about his day like any other, a messenger rushed toward him, gasping for breath. His face was pale with fear as he delivered the devastating news. Raiders had stolen Job's oxen and donkeys and slaughtered every one of his servants. Job looked at the messenger in utter shock. Before he could even react, another messenger burst into the room. Sweat was pouring down his face and he looked panic-stricken. In a broken voice, he told Job that he had been with the shepherds in the fields. Then out of nowhere, a massive fire fell from the sky, burning up all the sheep and killing the shepherds in its path. Trembling with horror, Job turned to the messengers, desperate for more answers. Just then, a third messenger rushed in. He urgently explained that he had been watching over Job's camels. All of a sudden, a group of Chaldean raiders stormed the pasture and stole every last camel. Then these ruthless men killed all of Job's servants without mercy. The weight of the devastating news was unbearable for Job. Little did he know, the worst was still to come. As he stared at his messengers in disbelief, the final messenger arrived. This man looked terrified. Trembling from head to foot, he stammered that he had been at the home of Job's firstborn son. All of Job's 10 children were there, enjoying a lavish feast. Then a powerful wind came and struck the house, causing it to collapse. Everyone inside the house was crushed to death. The overwhelming news hit Job like a thunderclap. He had lost everything and almost everyone he loved in just one day. Grief-stricken, Job got up, tore his robe, and shaved his head. Then the poor man fell to the ground in worship. He said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Even in the face of such overwhelming tragedy, Job's first instinct was to turn to God, and his faith remained unshaken. Satan had been closely watching the tragedy unfold, and he also observed how the upright man reacted to his immense suffering. But Satan wasn't satisfied. He returned to God's heavenly throne. And surprisingly, he claimed that Job's suffering wasn't enough. "You have to strike Job's body directly," Satan taunted God. "A man will give all he has for his life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, he's in your hands, but you must spare his life." Satan, now empowered to afflict Job's body, left God's throne room. This time, he was certain that he could make Job curse God. He set to work immediately. He struck Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. In sheer agony, Job left his home and sat on a pile of ashes, a symbol of his deep sorrow and loss. He then took a piece of broken pottery and desperately scraped his body to ease the unbearable pain from the sores. Job's wife was also overwhelmed with grief. The Bible doesn't clarify if she was the mother of the 10 children who died, but witnessing her husband endure such unbearable agony was more than her heart could bear. Consumed by anger and despair, she turned to her suffering husband and cried out, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Just curse God and die." Many have criticized her harshly for her outburst, but I believe we should approach her pain with compassion. Let us leave the judging to God, who alone understands the depths of every heart. Job rebuked his wife, saying, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Even in the midst of his tragedy, Job refused to entertain any criticism of God. Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zohar, soon heard of Job's tragedy. Although they lived far away, they set out immediately to be with their friend in his time of need. When they arrived, they were shocked to see their dear friend sitting in a heap of ashes and scraping his body with a piece of broken pottery. Without uttering a word, they sat down with him on the ground. For 7 days and 7 nights, they sat in complete silence, mourning with him. At last, Job broke his silence. His heart heavy with unbearable grief, he cursed the day he was born. Job poured out his pain and confusion, wondering why someone as innocent as him had to suffer so deeply. Why did the righteous suffer while the wicked seemed to prosper? With his soul laid bare, Job demanded an explanation, unable to understand the unfairness of it all. And if Job was expecting comfort from his friends, he was in for a painful letdown. His friends insisted that his suffering must be the result of some hidden sin, but Job still clung to his innocence. At the heart of the debate, Job's friends think that God governs the world based on the principle of retribution. In other words, they believe that good actions lead to blessings, and bad actions lead to suffering. And that is the central theme of the book of Job. Since Job is enduring such intense hardship, they're convinced that he must have committed some serious wrongs to deserve this fate. But God soon reveals the astonishing truth behind his suffering. And I hope this truth will offer you comfort when you face hardship in your own life. Now let's uncover the first reason God allows suffering. After Job and his friends finished speaking, God appeared in a whirlwind. Instead of directly answering Job's questions, God answered with a series of powerful questions, each designed to make Job think deeply. One question God posed was, "Where were you when I created the world?" And another was, "Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high?" At first, these questions may seem puzzling, but upon deeper reflection, it becomes clear that God is reminding Job of an important truth. Creation is so vast and intricate that our limited human minds will never be able to fully grasp it. God's plans are beyond our understanding, and part of that plan may involve our suffering. Most importantly, God reminds us that you can be innocent and still endure immense suffering. This is a tough truth to accept, especially when you or a loved one is going through such pain. But God gently invites us to place our trust in His infinite wisdom and love. So if you're suffering right now and can't understand why, I hope you can find comfort in knowing this. Your pain isn't necessarily punishment for a sin you've committed. Instead, it may be part of a greater plan that God has for you. Then, God offers His second reason for why suffering exists. And this one will truly amaze you. After Job humbly admits his pride, God challenges him to govern the world for just one day, applying the strict retribution principle. In other words, God asks Job to punish every wicked person and reward every good person. You might think that rewarding the good and punishing the wicked is the ideal way to govern the world. But God challenges this idea, seeming to defy common sense. Yet when we take a moment to reflect, we can begin to see its perfect logic. Imagine a world where every action has an immediate consequence. Someone robs a store and is instantly struck with a crippling disease. Another person donates money to charity and immediately sees their wealth multiply. In this world, many people would do good deeds only to avoid punishment or to receive rewards, not because they genuinely care about helping others or acting morally. Next, God provides his third reason for allowing suffering. God introduces two powerful creatures, Behemoth, a giant land animal, and Leviathan, a fearsome sea monster. These creatures represent forces in God's creation that are too powerful for humans to control. Although God made them, they should never be approached, as they can be dangerous. If you were to face Leviathan in the depths of the sea, it would destroy you whether you deserve it or not. Still, neither Behemoth nor Leviathan are evil. They're part of God's good world, showing that his creation has both beauty and danger, working together in a way beyond human understanding. God's third reason is that sometimes life brings chaos, and it's not always because of punishment from God. It can be difficult to accept that life is unpredictable, and we may face hardships or misfortune through no fault of our own. But this is part of how God has designed the universe to function. We must trust that God is doing everything for the best. God then restored Job's fortunes, giving him twice as much as he had before. Job also had 7 more sons and 3 daughters, who were renowned for their beauty. The hardest question is about Job's children who passed away. However, by trusting in God, we can find peace, knowing that he had a purpose for their lives. If you've lost someone dear, you may wonder why God allows such pain. Grief can feel overwhelming, but I hope you can find comfort in the fact that our time on earth is temporary. Though struggles seem unbearable, they won't last forever. Trust in God and know that in his perfect timing, we will be reunited with our loved ones in the peace of heaven. Now, who's this Satan who dares to enter heaven and challenge God? The answer may surprise you. In the context of the book of Job, Satan refers to a figure who stands before God as an accuser. The Hebrew word Satan means adversary or accuser. And in Job, this role is to question and challenge the sincerity of human righteousness. This Satan isn't there to destroy, but to test, as a prosecutor would in a courtroom. He's most probably not the evil devil Satan. Rather, you can think of him as a divine prosecutor angel working under the guidance of God. This helps us understand why God listens to him in the divine counsel. Job's journey shows us that suffering doesn't always mean punishment. Through unwavering faith and trust in God's plan, even in the darkest times, we can find strength and hope, just as Job did. If you trust in God, please comment Amen. Our next video reveals the 5 incredible miracles that occurred when Jesus died on the cross.